First and foremost, I have to give a shout out to Mrs. Gossip. I'm celebrating my 3rd Valentine's Day with her, and I've just disturbed our Valentine's Day dinner to sit down and record this video. The news is broken, as most of you will know by now, that Anthony Joshua will be fighting for the IBF World Heavyweight title on April the 9th at the O2 against none other than Charles Martin. Firstly, big news. Obviously, this is going to be a chance for Anthony Joshua in what I believe is his 15th or 16th fight. I think it's his 16th fight to fight for a version of the World Heavyweight title. And, you know, despite all the commentary and all the discussion there will be relating to that fact, shout out to him for being in that position. Shout out to Eddie Hearn for marketing him and building him to a place where he can get that fight. I think some credit needs to go to both guys for making this happen. I think it's a fantastic move from Charles Martin. You know, there's often something that we say in boxing which is get an opponent before they fully develop. In many ways, it's what Floyd Mayweather did to Canelo Alvarez. You know, he took Canelo when he was still young, he took Canelo when he was still a bit green, and he capitalised on that. And I think Charles Martin has a much higher chance of beating Anthony Joshua now than beating Anthony Joshua in a year's time. Charles Martin presents various challenges that Joshua hasn't faced before in his pro career. Martin is a southpaw. Martin is a similar size to Joshua. I mean, don't get me wrong, Joshua's fought guys at a similar size before, like Gary Cornish, for example. But Charles Martin is the first sort of elite big guy Joshua's fought. And also, Charles Martin is probably the hardest puncher, or the joint hardest puncher that Joshua's ever fought. So you're getting a lot of things thrown into one test here. A southpaw, a big guy, a big hitter. It's a massive step up for Anthony Joshua, make no mistake. You know, Dillian Whyte is a good fighter, but Charles Martin, for me at this stage, is a level above. Now, don't get me wrong, Charles Martin is still green himself. He's not a finished article by any stretch of the imagination, and he's still got a long time to go in his development. But I think he's taking the right decision to take a huge payday now. Credit to him for travelling. You know, there would have been all sorts of options available to him. Lots of people wanting a voluntary defence. And, you know, he's coming over to the UK. He's fighting an undefeated fighter in his first defence of the world title. And presumably, he's making a hell of a lot of money for it. So, credit to Charles Martin for taking the fight. It's certainly going to be one that is going to build and build and build. And that we are massively going to get excited for and look forward to. I've said previously it's a fight that I wouldn't have made for Joshua at this stage. I kind of felt he needed more learning fights before getting to world title level, more experience of being in with southpaws, more experience of going rounds in fights, you know, more experience of facing different types of offensive fighters who are going to allow him to test, improve and build upon his defence. And for me, whilst I made Joshua a slight favourite in the fight, but whilst Joshua was a favourite in the fight, I just think he could have been a much stronger favourite in the fight had this been allowed to develop for another year or so. So we shall see. I don't think it's I don't necessarily think it's a bad fight for Joshua, but I would have maybe waited a bit longer. You know, if Joshua is to win the title, he's going to be in a position where there'll be all sorts of mandatory obligations on him, I believe, early 2017. And, you know, there's going to be no room for him to hide. And Charles Martin, whilst he looks like an easier route to a world title, and whilst he looks fairly beatable, he's a test, you know, and he is by far the biggest opponent of Joshua's career so far. I know you could say the same is true vice versa, that Anthony Joshua is going to be the best opponent Charles Martin's fought. But, you know, it's interesting. Martin clearly isn't coming to lie down. He's just won the belt. He's got good people with him. And he's going to be coming over here to upset Anthony Joshua and to cause a big upset in Joshua's hometown of London. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it. I need to have a bit more of a sit down and think about how I think the fight's going to develop stylistically. And I'm sure I'll do another video on that tomorrow. But yeah, the news is out. Joshua versus Charles Martin, IBF heavyweight title of the world. Let me know what you think. Many thanks for watching.